10 transfers you forgot happened in 2021, including United's £37 million flop and Willian. The January transfer window is official opens as clubs around the world prepare to do business ahead of the second half of the season. A host of Premier League clubs are set to wheel and deal over the next month, with some frantically throwing money in a last-gasp bid to salvage their season. The winter window has garnered a reputation for being notoriously difficult to deal in, meaning there are likely to be some deals that flop. But before a host of new deals get wrapped up in 2022, Daily Star Sport takes a look at 10 transfers that you may have forgotten from 2021. Demarai Gray may be starring for Everton in the Premier League right now, but it's only 12 months since he was offloaded by Leicester City to Bayer Leverkusen. Despite showing glimpses of his quality for the Foxes, Gray failed to make the breakthrough at the King Power Stadium. Leverkusen nipped in to take Gray to the Bundesliga for a cut price £1.7 million fee, where he made a handful of appearances for the German Giants. Rafa Benitez hasn't got much right so far during his miserable stint in charge at Goodison Park, but the Spaniard played a blinder in bringing Gray back to the Premier League for the same £1.7 million fee that Leverkusen paid Leicester back in January 2021. Gray has quickly become a key player on Merseyside after netting a string of important goals for the Toffees. Who do you think was the worst signing on this list? Let us know in the comments section. It was a defensive crisis that ultimately cost Liverpool the chance to retain their Premier League crown last year. Injuries to a host of key men at the back, including Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez, meant that Jurgen Klopp had to dip into the transfer market for emergency reinforcements. Step forward, Ben Davies. The Preston centre-half was plucked from the grasp of Celtic, with Preston forced to do business on a cut-price deal with Davies' deal running down. Despite being on the books at Anfield for a year, Davies is still yet to make his Reds bow and is currently on a season-long loan back in the Championship with Sheffield United. It seems like only yesterday that Mesut Ozil was penning a new long-term deal at Arsenal, much to the delight of the majority of the club's fans. But things went south surprisingly fast for Ozil and the Gunners. Ozil was ostracized from the Gunners' side in a spookily familiar fashion to current skipper Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who is seemingly the latest Arsenal star to have seen his powers mysteriously wane after penning a lucrative new deal. Arsenal were so desperate to get Ozil's enormous salary off the books that they agreed to tear his contract up back in January 2021 for him to join Turkish giants Fenerbahce on a free. Takumi Minamino has struggled to make much of an impact since arriving in the Premier League back in January 2020. After finding first-team opportunities difficult to come by at Anfield, the Reds decided to give Minamino the green light to link up with top-flight rival Southampton to get some much-needed action. The 25-year-old made an electric start to his temporary stint on the South Coast, netting on his debut in a 3-2 defeat at Newcastle. But he only scored one other goal during his forgettable spell away from Merseyside. Minamino has, unsurprisingly, remained on the periphery at Anfield this season. But with Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane set to depart for up to a month to take part in the Africa Cup of Nations, Minamino could be handed the chance to resurrect his Reds career in the new year. Willian's stint at Arsenal appeared to be doomed right from the start. Gunners fans weren't happy with the club's decision to hand the ex-Chelsea winger a bumper 3-year deal in the summer of 2020, a decision that turned out to be a costly mistake for the Londoners. The 33-year-old made just 25 appearances for the club during a spell that he himself labeled as the worst in his career. Willian and the club came to an amicable agreement that saw the winger rejoin his boyhood club, Corinthians. Along with Davies, Ozan Kabak was another defender drafted in by Liverpool to plug a gap during last season's injury crisis. But Kabak didn't do enough in his handful of appearances for the Reds to persuade Klopp to strike a permanent deal. The Turkish defender returned to the Premier League in the summer to link up with newly promoted Norwich on another loan deal. Unfortunately for the Shaki ace, his second stint in England has so far proven to be just as miserable as his first. Kabak is yet to taste victory so far in his 9 appearances for the Canaries, who already look doomed to drop back into the Championship. Sebastian Haller has to be one of the Premier League's most intriguing players in recent memory. Haller arrived in England as West Ham's all-time record signing in a deal that was worth up to £45 million. But Haller was offloaded by the Hammers after a miserable 18 months in England. Since making the switch to Dutch giants Ajax, Haller has been banging in the goals, and he even managed to match a Champions League record set by Cristiano Ronaldo earlier this year, after scoring in every group game. Manchester United had the future in mind when they struck a deal for talented teenager Amad Diallo back in January 2021. The Red Devils forked out around £37 million for the 19-year-old. 1 year later, Diallo has struggled to position himself anywhere near the first team under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or the Norwegian successor, Ralf Rangnick. But there's still plenty of time on his side to ensure he doesn't just become another forgotten January signing. The transfer saga surrounding Joe Willock dominated the summer for Newcastle and Arsenal fans. The Magpies were desperate to snap up the midfield maestro after he netted an incredible 8 times in just 14 games on loan at the back end of last season. But, given the lack of impact by Willock this season, you could probably be forgiven for forgetting that Newcastle did indeed splash the cash to bring Willock to Tyneside on a permanent basis in a £25 million deal. Willock will be hoping he can rediscover his electric form from last year in the second half of the season to avoid becoming a big money flop. Steven Colker has enjoyed a colourful career and is set to mark his remarkable renaissance by featuring for Sierra Leone in next month's AFCON. But did you know that Colker has moved not just once, but twice in 2021? The ex-Tottenham defender was first snapped up by Turkish giants Fenerbahce back in June after impressing for Alanyaspor. Unfortunately for Colker, that move didn't work out and was offloaded to Gaziantep just 2 months after joining Fenerbahce.